The mysterious object. Commander Sarah Chen's footsteps echoed through the curved corridors of Orbital Station Delta, her mind still processing the day's negotiations with the Viridian Trade Council. The artificial gravity felt heavier than usual, matching her exhaustion after 12 hours of diplomatic maneuvering. As she approached her quarters, the door's biosensor hummed in recognition, sliding open with a soft hiss. The sight that greeted her stopped her mid-stride. Zara, her Viridian assistant, stood at the center of the room, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with an intensity Sarah had never witnessed before. But it wasn't Zara's unusual glow that caused Sarah's breath to catch. It was the object floating between the alien's four-fingered hands. A sphere of what appeared to be liquid metal hung suspended in the air, its surface rippling with patterns that seemed to mirror Zara's own markings. The usual composed demeanor of her assistant had vanished, replaced by an expression that, even on an alien face, Sarah recognized as a mixture of wonder and fear. "Commander," Zara's voice carried its usual melodic quality, but with an undercurrent of urgency. "I apologize for accessing your quarters without permission, but there is something you must know." The sphere pulsed in response to her words, sending ribbons of light dancing across the station's metallic walls. Sarah stepped fully into the room, allowing the door to close behind her. Her security training screamed at her to call for backup, but 5 years of working with Zara had built a trust that outweighed protocol. "What am I looking at, Zara?" "This," Zara gestured to the sphere with one of her secondary arms, "is why my people sought out humanity. Why we integrated ourselves into your households, your workplaces, your lives." The sphere shifted, its surface now displaying what looked like star charts Sarah had never seen before. "You're telling me that the Viridian Assistance Program, the entire cultural exchange that brought thousands of your people to Earth and our colonies, was about this object?" Sarah moved closer, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. Zara's primary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Sarah had learned indicated deep emotional significance. "Not this object specifically, Commander, but what it represents, what your people can do with it." She extended her hands, offering the sphere to Sarah. "Humanity has something we lost millennia ago, something we need desperately now." Sarah hesitated only for a moment before reaching out. As her fingers approached the sphere, its surface reacted, patterns swirling toward her touch, like iron filings drawn to a magnet. "What exactly do you think we have?" "Chaos," Zara replied, her voice carrying an almost reverent tone. "Creative chaos. The ability to see patterns in randomness, to make intuitive leaps that defy logic. My people once possessed this gift, but we engineered it out of ourselves in pursuit of perfect order. We thought we were evolving. Instead, we were dying." The sphere settled into Sarah's palms, surprisingly warm and light. Images began flowing across its surface. Mathematical equations, molecular structures, and what appeared to be DNA helices, but configured in ways she had never seen before. "This is a repository of possibilities," Zora continued, "created by my ancestors before the Great Ordering, when we still dreamed and imagined. We've preserved them, but we can no longer understand them. We can no longer think in ways that make these solutions viable." Sarah watched as the patterns shifted, revealing complexities that seemed to operate on multiple dimensions simultaneously. "And you believe humans can. We know you can. We've been watching how your people solve problems, how you innovate, how you create. What seems like disorder to us is actually a higher form of order, one that we desperately need to understand again." Zora's markings pulsed with increasing intensity. "The galaxy is changing, Commander. Challenges are emerging that cannot be solved with pure logic and predictable patterns. We need human chaos." Sarah looked up from the sphere, meeting all four of Zora's eyes. "Why show me this now? Why risk revealing your people's true purpose here?" Zora's secondary arms wrapped around themselves, a gesture of distress. "Because time is running out. The galactic core is destabilizing in ways our models cannot predict. We need humanity's unique perspective before it's too late. And you, Commander Chen, with your position in both diplomatic and scientific communities, are ideally placed to help us bridge this gap. The sphere in Sarah's hands grew warmer, its patterns now moving in sync with her own heartbeat. She thought about the implications of what Zara was revealing, not just about the Viridians' true motives, but about humanity's place in the galaxy. They weren't just hosts to advanced aliens. They were keys to solving problems that pure logic couldn't address. "If I help you," Sarah said carefully, "I want full transparency. No more hidden agendas. Humanity deserves to know its true value to the galaxy." Zara's markings shifted to a deep blue, a color Sarah had never seen them display before. "Agreed. But Commander, we must move quickly. What that sphere contains is only the beginning. There are more repositories, and with them, challenges that will require all of humanity's creative potential to solve." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Then let's get started. But first, you're going to tell me everything. About the repositories, about the core's destabilization, and about what exactly your people hope to learn from us." The sphere pulsed once more, brightly enough to momentarily illuminate the entire room, as if acknowledging the beginning of a new chapter in human-alien relations, one where humanity's perceived chaos might just be the key to saving the galaxy. Hidden knowledge. 2 hours after Zara's revelation, Sarah's quarters had transformed into an impromptu command center. Holographic displays flickered across the walls, showing cascading data streams from the repository sphere, which now hovered in a containment field at the center of the room. Sarah stood before the largest projection, her fingers tracing patterns in the air as she manipulated the data. "These energy signatures from the galactic core," she muttered, more to herself than to Zara. "They're not random at all. They're following a pattern we wouldn't recognize using standard analytical models." Sarah's eyes narrowed as she pulled apart layers of data, rearranging them like pieces of a puzzle. "It's almost like..." "Like what, Commander?" Zara moved closer, her bioluminescent markings pulsing in sync with the repository's shifting surface. "Like music," Sarah replied, her voice filled with sudden excitement. "Not literal music, but the same kind of structured chaos we see in jazz improvisation. There are themes, variations, responses. The core isn't destabilizing, it's evolving." Zara's secondary arms twitched in surprise. "Evolution implies purpose, Commander. Our models suggest pure entropy." "That's because your models are looking for mathematical precision." Sarah grabbed a tablet and began sketching rapidly. "Human music, especially improvised music, follows rules while simultaneously breaking them. It creates patterns that seem chaotic, but actually contain deep structure. Look at this." She projected her sketch into the air, overlaying it with the core's energy patterns. The similarities were striking. Both showed flowing, interconnected lines that seemed random at first glance, but revealed subtle recurring motifs upon closer inspection. "Fascinating," Zara whispered, her markings shifting to a deep purple of intense concentration. "But how does this help us prevent the core's collapse?" Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that came with breakthrough moments. "Because if we're right about this, we're not trying to prevent anything. We're trying to harmonize with it." She turned to face her alien companion. "Your people have been approaching this like engineers trying to fix a broken machine. But what if the core is more like an orchestra tuning up before a performance?" The repository sphere pulsed brightly, its surface now displaying what looked like musical notation interwoven with quantum equations. Zara moved closer to examine it, her primary eyes widening. "These patterns," she said slowly, "they appear in our oldest records, before the Great Ordering. Our ancestors used to speak of the songs of creation, but we dismissed such references as primitive metaphors." "Maybe they weren't metaphors at all," Sarah replied, her mind racing with possibilities. "Your ancestors understood something that got lost in your pursuit of perfect order. The universe isn't a machine, it's a composition. And sometimes, you need to improvise." Zara's markings flickered rapidly, a sign of intense emotional processing. If you're correct, Commander, this changes everything we thought we knew about cosmic stability. But it also presents a new problem. My people have lost the ability to improvise, as you put it. We can only follow established patterns. Then maybe that's why you really need us, Sarah said, reaching out to touch the repository's surface again. The sphere responded immediately, its patterns shifting to match her neural patterns. Humans are natural improvisers. We've had to be, to survive and adapt. Every challenge we've faced as a species has required us to think creatively, to find solutions that shouldn't work but somehow do. The repository suddenly projected a new set of images, scenes from human history showing moments of crisis and innovation. From the first use of tools to the development of space travel, each image highlighted humanity's knack for creative problem-solving. Your people were watching us even before first contact, weren't they? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Zara's color shifted to a shade that indicated affirmation. We observed how your species repeatedly overcame challenges that should have destroyed you. Instead of following logical progression, you made leaps that defied prediction. It was disturbing to us at first, threatening even, but then we recognized it as something we had lost. Sarah walked around the repository, studying the continuing stream of human achievements. And now the galaxy needs that same ability, to make intuitive leaps, to see patterns in chaos, to improvise solutions where logic fails. Yes, Zara confirmed, but we never anticipated finding the answer in music, of all things. Our scientists will struggle to accept this perspective. Then don't present it to your scientists first, Sarah suggested, a plan forming in her mind. Show it to your artists. Assuming you still have them. A few, Zara admitted. They are tolerated as reminders of our past, but they have little influence. That's about to change, Sarah said firmly, because we're going to need them to help translate what we're learning here. The repository isn't just showing us scientific data, it's showing us a way to bridge the gap between our species' ways of thinking. The sphere pulsed again, projecting what looked like a three-dimensional symphony of cosmic forces. Sarah watched as energy patterns from the galactic core merged with musical structures, creating a visualization that was both beautiful and profoundly informative. Commander, Zara said suddenly, her voice urgent, the core's activity is increasing. If your theory about harmonization is correct, we don't have much time to prepare. Sarah nodded, her expression determined. Then we need to move quickly. Contact your artists, and I'll start assembling a team of human musicians and physicists. It's time to compose a response to the galaxy's symphony. As if in agreement, the repository's surface erupted in a dazzling display of interconnected patterns, like sheet music written in stars. The true scale of their challenge was becoming clear. They needed to teach two radically different species to play together in cosmic harmony before the galaxy's next movement began. The Trust Bridge. The grand amphitheater of Orbital Station Delta had never hosted a gathering quite like this before. On one side sat a group of human musicians, their instruments ranging from classical violins to electronic synthesizers. On the other, a small contingent of Viridian artists, their bioluminescent patterns subdued in the bright light, each holding what appeared to be crystalline instruments of mysterious design. Sarah stood at the center, the repository sphere floating beside her, its surface reflecting the tension in the room. I know this seems unconventional, she began, her voice steady despite the skeptical looks from both groups. But what we're attempting here goes beyond traditional scientific or artistic boundaries. Zara stepped forward, her markings pulsing with gentle reassurance. My fellow Viridians, I understand your hesitation. For generations, we have sought solutions through pure logic. But our ancestors knew what we have forgotten. That truth sometimes lies in the spaces between ordered thoughts. Maya Rodriguez, Earth's leading quantum harmonics researcher and an accomplished jazz pianist, raised her hand. Commander Chen, I've reviewed the data you sent. The correlation between core energy patterns and musical structures is fascinating. But how do we translate this into actual communication with the galactic core? The repository responded before Sarah could answer, projecting a complex series of interwoven patterns into the air above the amphitheater. The display resembled both a musical score and a quantum equation, seamlessly blending both forms of notation. "That's precisely why we need both groups," Sarah explained, gesturing to the projection. "The core isn't just exhibiting random energy fluctuations, it's expressing something that requires both mathematical precision and artistic intuition to understand and respond to." One of the Viridian artists, their markings a deep shade of contemplative blue, lifted their crystalline instrument. "In our oldest traditions, before the Great Ordering, we spoke of the resonance, the belief that all matter and energy were connected through patterns of harmony. We dismissed these ideas as primitive superstition. Perhaps," Maya suggested, moving to her piano, "we could start by finding common ground between our musical traditions. Commander, can the repository translate between our different forms of notation?" The sphere pulsed, and suddenly the air was filled with parallel lines of human musical notation and Viridian crystalline patterns. As Maya played a simple jazz progression, the repository translated it into Viridian symbols. The Viridian artists' markings flickered in recognition. "The mathematics," one of them observed. "It aligns with the quantum harmonics of stellar formation. This is unexpected." Sarah watched as understanding began to dawn on both groups. "That's exactly what we're looking for, the intersection between art and science, between human intuition and Viridian precision. The core's patterns suggest it's speaking in both languages simultaneously." Over the next few hours, something remarkable began to unfold. Human musicians would play sequences that the repository translated, and Viridian artists would respond with their crystalline instruments. Each exchange revealed new patterns, new correlations between musical expression and cosmic phenomena. "Look at this," Maya called out, pointing to a new projection. "When we play in certain harmonic combinations, the patterns match exactly with the core's recent energy signatures. It's like we're learning its language." Zara's markings had shifted to an excited violet, and our crystalline resonators are amplifying the mathematical precision of these patterns. Together, we're achieving a synthesis that neither of our species could manage alone. The repository's surface suddenly erupted with new data, causing everyone in the room to fall silent. The sphere projected a massive image of the galactic core, now overlaid with both musical notation and quantum calculations. The patterns were clear. The core's activity was building toward something. "It's like a crescendo," Maya whispered, her fingers hovering over her piano keys. "The core is building toward a climax of some kind. Then we need to be ready to respond when it peaks," Sarah declared. "But we can't just react. We need to actively participate in this cosmic symphony. Maya, work with the Viridian artists to compose something that matches these patterns, but also anticipates their progression. We need to show the core we understand and can contribute to its harmony." A Viridian artist raised their crystalline instrument. "In our ancient texts, there are references to world songs, pieces of music that could allegedly influence the very fabric of reality. We always assumed these were myths. Maybe," Sarah suggested, "they were instructions left by your ancestors for a moment exactly like this." The repository had been waiting for us to rediscover this connection between art and science, between order and chaos. The humans and Viridians looked at each other with new understanding. The initial skepticism had been replaced by a shared sense of purpose. Together, they began to work on what would become humanity's first contribution to the galaxy's ongoing composition. As the two groups collaborated, the repository's patterns grew more complex and beautiful, reflecting the emerging harmony between the species. Sarah watched with satisfaction as barriers continued to fall, replaced by genuine curiosity and mutual respect. "Commander," Zora said quietly, coming to stand beside her, I believe we are witnessing something unprecedented. The birth of a truly hybrid art form, one that could potentially communicate with the fundamental forces of the galaxy itself. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the incredible scene before her. And in the process, we're proving that the greatest achievements don't come from either pure logic or pure creativity. They come from the courage to embrace both. Above them, the repository continued its dance of light and pattern, as if celebrating the new bridge being built between two very different ways of understanding the universe. The Galactic Core's symphony was building, and for the first time, both humans and Viridians were learning to add their own voices to its eternal song. Breakthrough. The rhythmic hum of instruments and crystalline resonators filled the transformed amphitheater. After 3 days of continuous collaboration, exhaustion showed on every face, human and Viridian alike. But something extraordinary was taking shape in their combined efforts. Maya sat at her piano, her fingers dancing across the keys while holographic representations of quantum equations swirled around her. The repository sphere hovered nearby, its surface rippling with increasingly complex patterns that matched both her music and the latest data from the galactic core. "There," Sarah exclaimed suddenly, pointing to a particular sequence in the holographic display. "Do you see it? The core's energy pattern just shifted to match our harmonic progression." Zara's markings flashed with excitement. "It's not just matching, it's responding. The mathematical precision is beyond anything we've recorded before." The Viridian artists began adjusting their crystalline resonators, their instruments emitting tones that seemed to exist somewhere between sound and light. As they synchronized with Maya's piano, the repository's display transformed, showing the galactic core's energy patterns weaving themselves into a complex tapestry of music and mathematics. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered, never taking her eyes off the keys. "But more than that, it's deliberate. The core isn't just producing random harmonies. It's engaging in a conversation." The repository suddenly pulsed with unprecedented intensity, projecting a new pattern that filled the entire amphitheater. The display showed the galactic core's energy waves forming into distinct structures, reminiscent of DNA helices, but far more complex. Those patterns, one of the Viridian scientists who had joined the group said, their markings paling in astonishment. "They match exactly with the structural basis of consciousness itself. We've seen similar formations in our studies of sentient brainwaves." Sarah stepped closer to the projection, her heart racing. "Are you saying the core is conscious?" "Not exactly," Maya replied, her hands still moving across the piano keys, maintaining the harmonic connection. "It's more like we're watching thoughts form on a cosmic scale. The core isn't a single conscious entity. It's a platform for consciousness itself." Zara's secondary arms moved in complex patterns as she analyzed the data. The ancient texts spoke of the galaxy as a living symphony, but we dismissed it as primitive mysticism. What if they were describing this exact phenomenon? The repository's surface suddenly erupted with new information, displaying what appeared to be a message encoded in both musical notation and quantum mathematics. The combined human-Viridian team watched in awe as the translation began to form. "It's an invitation," Sarah breathed, reading the patterns. "The core isn't destabilizing. It's evolving, creating new pathways for consciousness to emerge and connect across the galaxy. And it's inviting us to be part of that process." Maya's music took on a new complexity, incorporating the core's patterns while adding human improvisational elements. The Viridian artists responded, their crystalline instruments resonating in perfect mathematical harmony. Together, they began composing something entirely new, a response to the core's invitation. "Look at the energy readings," the Viridian scientist called out. "The core is amplifying our response, strengthening the harmonic connections across light years of space. It's using our combined music as a template for new neural pathways." Sarah watched as the repository displayed the effects of their composition rippling through the galaxy. Wherever the harmonics reached, new patterns of energy began to form, creating a vast network of interconnected consciousness. This is why both our species were needed, she realized. The Viridians provide the precise mathematical structure, while humans add the creative variations that make evolution possible. We're literally helping the galaxy develop new ways of thinking. Zara's markings shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, a deep, iridescent gold that seemed to contain countless subtle variations. Commander, I believe we're witnessing the beginning of a transformation. The galaxy isn't just a collection of separate conscious beings, it's becoming a medium for shared consciousness, using music and mathematics as its fundamental language. The repository pulsed again, this time projecting what looked like a vast three-dimensional musical score that stretched across space and time. Within it, they could see their own small contribution growing, spreading, influencing the larger pattern. We need to share this, Sarah declared. Not just with our governments, but with everyone. This isn't just about saving the galaxy. It's about becoming part of something far greater than ourselves. Maya's fingers finally stilled on the piano keys, but the harmony continued, sustained by the Viridian resonators and amplified by the core itself. The real question is, are we ready for this? Are our species prepared to be part of a galactic consciousness? Perhaps that's why the process is unfolding through music, Zara suggested, her markings still shimmering with that new golden light. It allows us to participate in the transformation gradually, learning to harmonize before we fully merge with the greater symphony. The repository's surface settled into a steady pulse, like a heartbeat echoing through space. The pattern it now displayed was neither purely mathematical nor purely musical, but a perfect synthesis of both, a new language born from the collaboration between humans and Viridians. Sarah looked around the amphitheater at the exhausted but exhilarated faces of both species. "We've done more than bridge our differences," she said softly. "We've discovered why those differences were necessary in the first place. The galaxy needs both order and chaos, precision and creativity, to reach its full potential." Above them, the first notes of the galaxy's new symphony continued to play, carrying their combined contribution across the cosmos, inviting others to join in the eternal dance of consciousness and creation. A new chapter. 1 month after the breakthrough, Orbital Station Delta had transformed into the galaxy's first harmonic exchange center. The once sparse amphitheater now housed a permanent installation of both human and Viridian instruments, while the repository sphere occupied a place of honor at its center, continuously translating between music, mathematics, and the ever-evolving language of the galactic core. Sarah stood at the observation deck, watching as ships from various worlds arrived, carrying musicians, scientists, and artists eager to participate in what had become known as the Great Symphony. Beside her, Zora's markings flickered with contentment as they observed a group of human children, teaching young Viridians the basics of rhythm through simple hand claps. If someone had told me a month ago that we'd be running an intergalactic music school, I wouldn't have believed them. Sarah mused, smiling as one of the Viridian youngsters successfully matched a complex rhythm pattern. "The changes extend far beyond music, Commander," Zara replied, her secondary arms gesturing to a nearby display showing real-time data from across the galaxy. "The harmonic network we helped establish has already led to breakthroughs in quantum communication, consciousness transfer, and even space-time manipulation." The repository pulsed gently in response to their conversation, projecting a galaxy-wide map of the growing neural network. Bright lines of energy-connected star systems that had joined the symphony, creating patterns that resembled both a musical score and a vast, cosmic nervous system. Maya entered the observation deck, carrying a tablet filled with new harmonic equations. "You need to see this," she said excitedly. "We've detected the first signs of spontaneous harmony generation in previously dormant regions of space. The galaxy isn't just accepting our music, it's beginning to compose its own." Sarah studied the data, her expression thoughtful. "It's like we provided the initial spark, and now the process is becoming self-sustaining." "Have the Viridian scientists analyzed the mathematical implications?" "Better than that," Zara replied, her markings shifting to excited violet. They've started incorporating elements of human jazz improvisation into their theoretical models. The results are unprecedented. We're discovering aspects of quantum mechanics that we never imagined existed. The station trembled slightly as a new wave of harmonic energy passed through, causing the repository to flare brilliantly. The sphere projected images of distant star systems where the cosmic symphony was triggering the formation of new neural pathways, creating connections that transcended physical space. "We're witnessing the birth of a genuine galactic consciousness," Maya whispered, watching the display. "Not a single overwhelming mind, but a network of infinite diversity, each consciousness contributing its own unique voice to the greater harmony." Sarah turned to Zara, noting how her friend's markings now regularly displayed colors that had been impossible for her species before their participation in the symphony. "Your people have changed too. The rigid patterns of the great ordering are giving way to something new." "We're remembering how to dream," Zara agreed, her voice carrying a note of wonder. "The music has awakened something in us that was only sleeping, not truly lost. And humanity." She paused, her primary eyes focusing on Sarah. "You've discovered that your chaos was always a higher form of order." The repository suddenly expanded its projection, filling the observation deck with a visualization of the galaxy's musical evolution. They could see how the initial human-Viridian collaboration had sparked a cascade of creative awakening across countless civilizations. Species that had never communicated before were now joining their voices to the greater symphony. "The most remarkable thing," Maya noted, gesturing to a particular pattern in the display, "is how the music preserves individuality while creating unity. Each species, each individual, maintains their unique signature while contributing to the whole." "Perhaps that's the true gift humanity brought to the galaxy," Sarah suggested. "Not just creativity or chaos, but the understanding that harmony doesn't require uniformity. It's the differences between notes that make music beautiful." Zara's markings rippled with agreement, and my people contributed the mathematical framework needed to maintain those differences without descending into discord. Together, we found the balance the galaxy had been waiting for. The repository pulsed once more, this time projecting what appeared to be future probability patterns. The display showed countless potential timelines, all flowing from their current moment, each one richer and more complex than the last. "We've only begun to understand what we've started," Sarah said, watching the possibilities unfold. "The galaxy isn't just alive, it's evolving, and we're all part of its journey now." As if in response to her words, a new harmonic wave swept through the station, carrying with it fragments of music from 1,000 worlds. The sound was indescribable. Mathematics made audible, consciousness given voice, the very fabric of space-time expressing itself through song. Maya moved to a nearby piano, her fingers finding keys that matched the cosmic harmony. Around the station, other musicians, human and alien alike, began joining in, adding their voices to the eternal symphony. The repository's surface rippled with joy, translating their music into pure energy that rippled out across the stars. "This is just the first movement," Zara observed, her markings now displaying that impossible gold that had become the signature of cosmic harmony. "The galaxy's symphony has countless movements yet to play." Sarah nodded, feeling the music resonate through her entire being. "And we'll face each one together, adding our voices to the song, learning and growing with every note." Above them, the stars seemed to pulse in time with the music, as if the entire universe was keeping beat with the rhythm they had helped discover. It was no longer just about saving the galaxy. It was about becoming part of its ongoing evolution, its eternal dance of consciousness and creativity. The great symphony played on, carrying the combined dreams, hopes, and voices of countless beings across the cosmic sea, proving that in the end, the greatest power in the universe wasn't force or logic, or even creativity alone. It was the courage to join together in harmony, adding one's unique voice to the endless song of existence.